And maybe you all could talk through chat or something?
We do that.
Okay. So when you're ready, let me know.
Okay, you are recording.
Oh, okay. All right. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for joining me and making my birthday a great day. I mean, this is exciting. It's out of my comfort zone, but with COVID-19, we had to figure out something to do. And I was absolutely thrilled when I realized that I could do something and share it with others as well. So what you're seeing today is a birthday party for me, a virtual birthday party, but I get to show you and introduce to you some of the authors for Sula Too, including myself, and allow us to tell you the backstories behind some of the things that we do. Now, this is going to be like a book signing. So at a book signing, we will read from our books. We will talk about what happened. We will talk to you as if you're sitting right there looking at us, which you are, and enjoying the backstory. And if you're joining us live, chat with us. Ask a question, because we will answer your questions if we see it. So what I'm going to do is start off with who I am and why did I get started in what I do. Well, I am Ersula Odom, and I grew up in the backwoods of Georgia. Yes, I'm a country girl, and I say it with no shame. I actually enjoy that. I get to share with you the fact that I feel like I've lived from the 1920s until now, meaning that I grew up with horse and buggy in the sand. I picked cotton. I did some things that people think are only in the history books. Well, no, they're in my lifetime. They're a part of my history. And I get to share that kind of information with you. Now, as a child, I realized that my very first memory was crawling under my grandmother's bed and pulling out a box that had old letters, photographs, and a lock of her sister's hair. And I was fascinated with that at that point, and it has been a part of me from that day until today, because quite frankly, I still love those things. All that you see me do today relates to that love of the story behind the photograph, behind why did she put that lock of hair in that box. And it happened to be in a Have a Tampa cigar box. Now, I'm in Tampa, so that's crazy. In Georgia, I had no idea what that even was, because as a child, you know, you don't talk about smoking anything, or at least we didn't. But now it all comes to front and center, so I understand what it was all about. It was just destined to be. I am here. I am doing what I do. I am an author. I'm a publisher. I actually portray historical figures. There are multiple. Mary McLeod Bethune and Ida B. Wells. And I enjoy that. It's all about the story. That's why I enjoy bringing to you the authors that you will hear about and see tonight. Totally love this process. So to get started, let me tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do and why it's a little bit different. Or maybe you'll find out that it's not different. Maybe we're a lot alike. I keep journals. And I've kept a journal from 11th grade, when my English teacher suggested that we write a journal. And the first line in my journal was, "Today, the teacher asked us to write a journal, and I think I'm going to like this." And I did. So how has that manifested? So I have a journal that's older than some of your grandparents. This is from the 70s, if you can see that. Okay. It's my scrapbook, which I'm trying to see if you can see it. Okay. It's my scrapbook that basically fell all apart. But why is it important? I had something happen just recently that I totally loved. I got a message from someone on Facebook that I recognized the name, and I went, that's somebody from high school. And I went to my scrapbook and I found the picture. I found the person who had contacted me, and it was a basketball star from my high school days. And it was showing him as an MVP. I made a copy of that and sent it to him. And what I have found over the years is that a lot of people do not have those things that I've held on to, but they really cherish them when they are reconnected with them. And yes, he was able to share it with his grandchildren and all of that. See, I like that. I love doing that. So that's at the root of most of what you see me do, and why I do it. There's another time when my favorite, well, my best friend from college used to write letters. During the time when people were still writing letters, during the summertime, that's what she did. And she ended up being an attorney, so that all stands to reason. And she wrote letter after letter after letter after letter. And I found them recently and I scanned them all in and I sent them to her. And she was just floored. And that gave me such joy to be able to do that, and connect her to her history. And the funny thing about it, I said to her, see, all of that wisdom that you had back then, and we had no idea where it came from, but this is evidence that you talked that way. You shared things that we needed to know, and we had no idea. How could she be so wise and have never done anything? So, it's just a wonderful thing to bring a little bit of joy to someone because you've connected them to who they are and why, and help them to understand who they were and why they've been able to do the things that they do, what makes them able to survive day to day, the good, the bad, what have you. And for myself, mine is rooted in my grandmother. Who I am, it goes right back to my grandmother. Her name is Ersula, and therein lies the reason for my name and my company's name, Ersula. Sula happens to be short for Ersula. So I am Sula too. So that's what it means. And what I find is that every day I learn more about what she used to say to me as a child. And the journals that I talked about, that I wrote in, when I went back to my college reunion, my 10th college reunion, I had one of those journals and I pulled it out and I was showing people some of the things that I wrote. And it was actually quite funny because I remember Jerry Cotton at that time. She's been married since then, but I opened my journal and I said, look, this is something I said about you. And the look of horror on her face, she had no idea what was in that journal. But it was at that moment that I realized the kinds of things that I wrote were positive and uplifting and things that you would want to remember, not some deep, dark secret that you would want to hide. I wanted to know why this person had an impact on me at that particular time. I wanted to remember that that person encouraged me when I needed to be encouraged, or that told me that I impacted their life. Whatever the moment was that I wanted to remember, that is why I actually wrote those things. So I came back all sure that I was going to write a book, and it was going to be based on the journals that I had been writing in and scrapbooks that I had been keeping. But you know what happened? As I sat down to write, my grandmother popped up. Almost everything I said ended up being something that she talked about, or that her voice was in my head, and I channeled her almost. So At Sula's Feet is in fact the result of the things that my grandmother said to me, the events that took place when I was in school and as a growing up in grade school. And then over the years, some of the things that I've learned and thoughts that I have had, or points of view that I have settled on. Now, how did I get to At Sula's Feet? Well, I started writing when my Aunt Janie was ill. And there was a lot of time waiting in hospitals and what have you. And I just made a list of all the things I wanted to talk about when I was in school or when I was growing up with grandmother. And what popped out were the things that ultimately ended up being in At Sula's Feet. So I read them in a Toastmasters meeting. And the reaction that I got was so wonderful. They encouraged me to publish. And I had no idea how to do that. None. So I made a beeline from that meeting to Felicia Winton's Books for Thought. That lady is in my head and in my heart because she sat with me for about an hour. And we went back and forth about would anybody really like it? Is it worthy of being published? And she ultimately said to me, she said, Ersula, it's not how many lives that you touch, but that you touch lives. And with that, I said, good, that's what I'm going to do. If one person likes what I do, then I'm okay. Because I have changed one person's life, or I brought joy to one person's life. And then she proceeded to tell me who I needed to talk to. And she told me about Rick Rollins. That's the person that helped me with my first book. And I called Rick, and he agreed. And he told me what day that I should come and talk to him. And I looked at the calendar and I said, oh, no. That's not the day I want to go on. I want to come see you on Wednesday. I said, because you are going to be my birthday present to me. It was my birthday. So I have come to realize that this is my season, around the time that I am grateful that I am alive, and especially now. But you know, I'm grateful that I was born. I'm grateful that I have had an opportunity to share and to learn and to just be. So I went to see Rick on my birthday. Today is the anniversary, hot dog. It really is. Thank you, Rick Rollins. Thank you for bringing this dream alive. So I talked to him and told him about my grandmother, and I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I had decided that I was going to call that book A Country Girl's Memory. And he said, I don't like that. And then he started asking questions. And finally he said, what's your grandmother's name? And I said, they call her Sula. He said, okay, well, what you've been saying is that you've been at Sula's feet. I said, oh, that's it. That's it. That's it. So that's how we got At Sula's Feet. Now, how profound it ultimately became is that when I was telling my cousin about it, and she's one of those really detailed persons, okay? And she'll make sure that things are absolutely right. And she started asking me questions about this person that was supposed to be helping me. Why are you choosing that person? What does it, all kinds of questions, right? I mean, like a litany of questions. And then finally I said, well, the reason that I really ultimately like and want to go forward with him is because he came up with the title that I am really happy with. And I said, At Sula's Feet. And I could feel the air just stop. Because what she remembered at that time, she said, do you realize that when we buried her mother, my aunt, she said, we decided where to put her by saying we will bury her at grandmother's feet because that's where she always was. So the title of a book can mean something universally, or it can mean something to you as a person and your heart. And as we talk to the authors that I have here tonight, I would like them to think about, why did you pick the title for your book? What does it really mean to you? So be prepared to share that when you come on. So at this point, one of the things I'd like to do is actually read some of the things from At Sula's Feet, because I told you it was going to be a book signing. That's what, I mean, it's where we do these kinds of things. So to give you an idea what my grandmother was like, I usually start out with one that is rather profound when you think about it in totality. It's called Limits of Love. And I used to say, Grandma, I love you so much. I don't think I could stand it if you died before me. And she'd say, uh-huh. I said, Grandma, I love you so much. I don't think I could stand it if you died before me. She said, uh-huh. And I said, apparently one time too many, Grandma, I love you so much. I don't think I could stand it if you died before me. And she said, you know, if you really mean that, get on your knees and pray. God is a good God, and he answers prayers. I thought about that thing. I said, oh, she's 68. I was 10. I said, uh-huh. So I didn't make that prayer, and I would have felt real guilty about it over the years, but grandmother lived to be 92 years old, so I don't feel like I cut her life short by making a prayer. So, you know, I was just so grateful to her. Now, let me tell you why that is profound to me. She had an opportunity to belittle me, because what I was asking her was the worst thing that you could ask a parent, and that is to precede them in death. Nobody wants their child to die before them. That's just the most horrible thing that you can imagine. And it happens every day. In fact, even in our family, as I speak, that has just happened within the last week. It's a terrible thing. So grandmother could have belittled me, but she didn't. She made me think about what I was saying. And I came to the conclusion that that was not the natural order of things. She had had that happen to her multiple times, and she wanted no parts of it. She'd had loved ones pass, her own children. In fact, as a genealogist in the family, I sat at my grandmother's feet and I listened to everything she said. And there are things that she told me that if I had not shared them, they would have probably gone unknown by most of the family. Grandmother, and it's written in the book too, there's a poem about that. It's called Bearable Grief. And it's about losing a child. So it also says that people said that grandmother had 8 children, but she told me that she had 9. So let me tell you why she said that. It's because she had a daughter named Rosemary. And Rosemary was the combination of her mother and her mother-in-law. Her mother's name was Rose, and her mother-in-law's name was Mary. So this child carried the name of both her grandmothers. But her dress caught fire, and she inhaled the flames from that fire. And she died a slow death, such that the child that grandmother was carrying was lost. So grandmother lost 2 children at once. One, Rosemary, and one child that had not been born. It was stillborn. So people count the ones that survived birth. Grandmother counted the one that did not, because that child was her child, regardless of what anybody else thought. It was her child. So with that being said, now you wonder, 8 children. Let me tell you how that happened. This is also in At Sula's Feet. My grandmother told me a dirty joke one time. And it's the only dirty joke that she ever told me. And it goes like this. The only dirty joke that my grandmother ever told me was no joke at all. For when she got married, she had never really seen a man. So she thought it was funny and she laughed. She got pregnant, had a set of twins. She got pregnant a second time and had another set of twins. She said when she got pregnant the third time, she stopped laughing. And so I say that that was a dirty joke because, quite frankly, it talks about something that is intimate, and grandparents usually did not have those kinds of conversation with children, and it was coded when she did, but I got it. And most of what grandmother said fits a song that she used to sing all the time. You'll understand it better by and by and by, when the morning comes. And I didn't understand that then, but I understand it now. Now, I tell that a lot of times, not because I want to tell a risque joke or anything like that, but I tell it because later, recently, I found a copy of grandmother's marriage certificate. And Janie and Johnny were born 9 months and 2 days after the wedding. So it wasn't a joke, it was for real. So when I tell that to people, what I say is, when old people talk to you, shut up and listen, because they may be telling you something you need to know. And on that note, there's another poem in the book that's called Grandmother's Opinion. So I am the product of a divorce, okay? My grandmother raised me from age 9 months old. And I am happy about that. I love my grandmother to death. So I wouldn't have it any other way. So whatever the universe set in motion that caused me to be at my grandmother's, thank you very much. I am totally okay with that. But I often would ask her, what happened with my mom and my dad? Why did they split up? And one time she'd just say, ask your mom. And I'd ask her again and she'd say, ask your pa. She never did tell me anything about that relationship. So what that meant is, as an adult and as I grew older, I came to know them all for myself. And I formed my own opinion about who they were all by myself. It wasn't tainted by what grandmother thought. And you realize that that, to me, takes a lot, because you're talking about her daughter and some of the man. Okay, so she very well could have said a whole bunch of things about this other person, but she didn't. And I grew to love them both. And I ended up taking care of my mother for 18 years, being legally responsible for her most of those years, because she also had a problem. And I, as an author, like to talk about this because it gives me a reason to say writing is good. For most of my life, I lived in absolute shame and horror that people would find out that my mother was mentally ill. See, I said it out loud. Now, that may not be the appropriate term now, but that is the term that gave me my emotional freedom because I wrote about it in At Sula's Feet. And when I wrote those words and the world didn't cave in on me, and nobody cared. It was my personal demon that I had to deal with. And once I wrote it, I felt freed. And so sometimes you can share things with another person. Maybe that's a professional. I'm not suggesting that you go around telling everybody everything, but I'm just saying, getting that out somehow, some way can be, or at least it was for me, therapeutic. So here's what I wrote. It's called Mentally Ill Mom. Mother's hell, child's purgatory. Child, afraid to love her, for the veil of shame will follow. Mother, dreams lost, the beautiful voice, the unequal intelligence gone. Child, fear, will it happen to me? Mother, how can I protect this child from the horrors I face? I was a home economist. She's headed that way. Child, I won, all packed and ready to go to state. Oh no. She hid my materials. The team left without me. I hated her. Then I realized I can't hate her. She can't help it. She can't help it. She can't help it. Mother, I can't stand my sister, for my child loves her more. I resent my mother because my child loves her more. Mother, this is my child, and there's nothing else real in this world, in my life. Child, goodness gracious, why did she stare at me so? Adult child, she took care of me for 9 months. I've taken care of her for 96 months. I must learn to love her. Adult child, she's really nice. She's really a lovely person. I actually love her. What a wonder. I was never her baby, but now she's mine. Mother, what can I ask her to bring me? For it is her that I want to see. And that's called Mentally Ill Mom. And that was a freeing moment for me when I wrote that book. I mean, that particular part. And just to put a cap on this one about my mom, one of the things I learned or came to believe is that happiness is learning to love the things that you have to do instead of always doing the things that you love doing. So I had to take care of her, and I had to find ways to be okay with that. And so my mother used to talk to people that I didn't see. And one day I just got totally frustrated. And I said, Ma, could you please be in the here and now? Because she was just going. She was just talking to these people. And she said, here and now? I said, yeah, here and now, some sense of reality. She said, okay, you forgot to bring me my popcorn. Okay, so she had a sense of humor. Or at least I found the humor in it. Now, I will probably read some more throughout the evening, but I would like to open up the airways for my authors. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm curious about your titles. So I would like you to introduce yourselves and give us the title of your book and why you picked the title. Give us a little bit of an introduction to it. It's not time for you to read it all yet, because each of you will have a turn to do that. But I'm just curious about your title. What's behind it? Why did you decide to write the book? So with that, Dana, if you could open up one of the authors or several of the authors' mic for me.
Okay. Mr. Cecil Howard.
Sure.
Hi,
Hi.
Cecil.
Hi. How's everybody this afternoon?
Absolutely wonderful. Glad that you're here. So tell us,
Good.
Cecil,
Good.
why did you
Good.
pick the title that you did?
I'll do that, but first let me say that I really did enjoy your opening comments. I really did enjoy, the poetry you were reading and the inserts you were reading, or the excerpts, I guess, from your at Sula's feed. They were excellent. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. Also, let me tell you, I can't stay the entire night. I think I may have mentioned that to you. My calendar is crazy even in the evening time, but I'm going to try to stay as long as I can because I see the value in this and I know it's going to be quite enjoyable. But I'll tell you, my book is.
So
I'm sorry.
since that is the case, why don't you go ahead and just go into it. Tell us the whole story so that you can get it in, because I know your story is fascinating to me. Absolutely fascinating. So just go with it.
Sure. Okay. So let me tell you first, in July of this year, I'll be turning 61. And that's important because I want to give you the reference time-wise in terms of my generation of when I was growing up. Most of my growing up was pretty much in the 70s. I mean, I consider myself a kid of the 70s. My family is from the backwoods of Georgia too, but as a kid, we moved, my dad and mom moved down to Miami when I was about 2 years old. And I had an older sister at the time. My mom had stillborn twins, so they didn't make it. And I had a sister right beneath me. So there were 3 children at the time, and my parents. And then when they got to Miami, they had 3 more children. My book is entitled Pains for a Purpose. And I have a list now, which is sometimes funny when I go back over it. I must have I started writing a book, but I must have come up with over 100 titles. I couldn't quite get the title I wanted. Every time I would, think I had the perfect title, I would kind of, mull over it for a day or so. And then I say, nah, I don't think that's it either. But I would keep it written down on a list of titles that I had accumulated. So to tell you a little bit about the story, and you'll see the challenge I have with the title. So growing up in Miami, my mom and dad separated in my youth at about age 6. They separated. My mom started living with another guy, and I think my dad had this little girlfriend somewhere as well. At one point, my dad and this other guy that we were all staying with, they got into a fist fight. This guy had a knife. He killed my dad. I actually witnessed all of that. So I talk about that in greater detail in the book. And so from that point forward, here I am as now a 7-year-old kid. My mom is basically uneducated, and she has 6 children. And we're left to fend for ourselves because the guy went on the run. I don't know if he was ever prosecuted, but we never heard from him again. So it was basically my mom and 6 children. I'm sorry, actually there were 5 of us there because my older sister was in Georgia back then. Sometimes your grandparents would take care of the children. So even though there were 6 of us, there were 5 left there in Miami with my mom. And she had to eventually raise all of us. So I'd say from 7 years old until the time I left to go to college, that was the only thing I can probably say about it is that it was just basically pure hell growing up in the city. I mean, we were kicked out of our houses or apartments on several occasions. My mom was robbed many times. I mean, we relied on my dad's Social Security check. And she received a Social Security check as a result my dad died. So we relied on that. And there were several times, at least 3, maybe 4 times, but at least 3 times that I distinctly remember where we were robbed, and that was our month's, money for the entire month. So when that happened, we'd basically be, broke and, nowhere to go or eat or have anything to get by. So that's what would cause us to get kicked out of our apartments. And back then, thank God they don't do it now, but back then, literally the sheriff would literally come in and take your belongings out of the house, put them literally on the side of the street, and lock your door, padlock your door, and you could not go back into your house. So if you can imagine the humiliation, the fear, the anger of all of that, and I experienced that on several occasions. So, but despite all of that, and I guess I would call myself a mischievous kid. I wasn't a bad kid. I mean, I never got like in big boy trouble, but I did do little mischievous stuff. But eventually, as I got older, I started thinking about going to college, and nobody in my neighborhood went to college. Nobody. I mean, barely. A few people even graduated from high school. But I decided to go to college, and I went to college, went to Florida State, and then from Florida State, I actually went to law school out in Texas, at Texas Southern University. Then I moved back to Florida. So I'm an attorney right now. But that was such a big move for me, and it was basically unheard of. I was at a point where I could have just kind of looked at my environment and my surroundings and become a product of that environment down in Miami and Liberty City. If you're familiar with that part of Miami, was just straight up hood. And but I loved it. I mean, I loved living in the hood, but I hated our circumstances and the stress and the struggles and the pain of going through what we went through on a very, very regular basis. And actually, I used that to motivate me to get out of that environment, to go to college. But I had three brothers behind me. They were by that time, my other sister, who was a year younger than me, she had gone to live with my grandmother in Georgia as well. So my grandmother raised my two sisters. Mom kept the four boys, and they were all younger than me. And so when I left to go to college, the biggest issue I had was, what would happen to my little brothers? They were 3, 4, and 5 years younger than me. And of course, I left with the Tallahassee, with Florida State. My brothers did not finish high school. They really did become a product of the environment. I mean, that same product that I really went out of my way to avoid becoming. So for a long time, I lived with the guilt of, wow, did I let my brothers down? Could this have been different had I stayed in Miami? But on the other hand, I would often say, well, would I have been different had I stayed in Miami? Would I have made the accomplishment or the achievements that I did do as a result of leaving Liberty City and going to college? My mom didn't really understand this whole thing about colleges. She didn't understand this whole notion of why I wanted to go all the way to Tallahassee. She thought I could have gone to community college, which is, she had heard some people down in Miami going to Miami-Dade Community College, but I have a very distinct reason. I mean, it was basically, for me, it was either Florida State or nothing. And I talk about that in the book. That's the first university I ever heard of when I was 10 years old. And I said, well, you know what? I want to go to college and I want to go to that university. So nothing could, I mean, I've always been a real kind of strong-willed kind of person anyway. And so since that was my motivation, you couldn't get me to go anywhere. My counselor actually tried to get me to go to the University of Florida because he had a friend that he was recruiting for University of Florida. And I kept telling him, I'm not going to University of Florida. He kept saying, Cecil, they're all the same. You're a kid from Liberty City, they're all the same. And I said, to you, they are, not to me. So I was very, very, very adamant. And right now, I still have a love affair with Florida State. I sit on their National Alumni Board. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm a really, really big Florida State fan. I mean, I think Florida State saved me. But so you can see where I got the title Pains for a Purpose. I mean, it could have been something like Beating the Odds or Unconquered or, we winning, coming out ahead. Well, it could have been any of those, which were really cliches, but I wanted something that really, really, really drove home the point. So I was sitting in church one morning at my church here in Tampa, and Pastor Roundtree was talking, and he was talking out of a scripture out of, I think, 2 Peter 5th chapter 10th verse, and he was making a reference to that chapter, and he said, these people were really going through a whole lot, but there was a reason they were going through it. He said essentially, there was they were actually experiencing those pains for a purpose, and he said that, and I just almost literally jumped up out of my seat and said, "Wow." I told my wife, that's it. And she was saying, what's that? I said, that's my title. That's my title. Pains for a purpose. I went through all that pain for a purpose. And I pulled my phone out, and, my wife, she doesn't like you using your phone in church. And I said, honey, I'm not on Facebook. I'm writing some notes down so I don't forget. And I wrote that scripture down in that title. And that was the last title I had to come up with. After that, I said, that's it. This is the title that I have. Pains for a purpose. All that stuff I went through, I think it built me up. It made me stronger. It motivated me to want to get out of the hood, to want to get out of Miami, to strike out and to make some accomplishments on my own instead of waddling and self-pity and saying, oh, I'm just a kid from the ghetto. I can't do anything. I can't do this. I can't do that. So I went to Florida State, no money in my hand. We didn't have a phone at our house, so I couldn't call the university. I did send an application. I had no financial aid. I had no dorm. I had nothing. But I worked all summer, and I got a plane. I didn't want my mom and nobody to drive me to Tallahassee. Took the flight. Air Florida used to be in business back then. Got to Florida State, nothing. And I tell all the story about how all the angels just kind of seemed to line up. The people I encountered there who got me squared away with housing. Actually, I was placed in a scholarship house. Got me emergency loans until my regular financial aid came through. I didn't apply for it until I actually got there. I mean, everything just kind of lined up. And from there, it just, everything was just moving upward, onward and upward. I eventually joined the church, got saved. And I talk about that, how I was, became a Christian, but and how I wanted to do so as a kid, but couldn't afford when we didn't have clothes that I could even go to church, or I didn't. At least I didn't feel I could go to church in the clothes we had. And there were churches all around us in Liberty City, but I never went to them, although I always wanted to. So some of it turns on the spirituality, and I talk about how God carried me and how God looked after me and how God loved me when I didn't even know God. I mean, I didn't know him at all. I was just kind of going through life. But I just think he just had his hands and his eyes on me the entire time. And that's why I was never consumed. I used to say it was all luck, but I eventually conclude in the book that no, it was all providence. It was all God's doing God's will. And that's what saved me. That's what got me out of that environment. So my purpose is to use that book to motivate other young men, because I've encountered a lot of young men in my career who just felt, hey, look, this is how I am. This is who I am. This is what I will always be. And I find myself mentoring those young men and say, no, you can do more. You could do this. You could do that. So I'm going to use this book as I practically give it away right now as it is, but I'm going to use it as a tool to motivate these young men and motivate people in general, but particularly young men, because I think it's so important that they see other people who've lived that same life that they've lived. I mean, you name it, I've lived it. You named it. I mean, there's some stuff I didn't even want to put in the book because I don't know if people would be able to handle it. But if you name it, I've lived it. But you can overcome those odds. You can overcome those battles, and eventually you will come out ahead. So that's kind of the book in a nutshell, and I'm ready to move forward with it.
You know what's really interesting for me as I listen and work with your story is that in all that you did and went through, you ended up being someone that made history in the things that you ultimately were able to do. And that's what's really nice about what people will discover when they read your book is what that was. I mean, you made some significant history. And you don't have to tell them what it is right now. They can read the book. But it's wonderful, and I can see where it will motivate young men, because you are living proof that regardless of what you go through, you can thrive. And that's what I love about the stories that you all bring to light. So thank you so very much for that.
Sure.
Okay, so up next, Karen has a video, but we're gonna play that after the next person. Rosetta, are you ready to go? Tell us about your story.
Sure. I'm I'm here, but let me quickly apologize because my grandson is 4 years old and he's in the other room. So you may either hear him or see him in the next few minutes because he pops in and out all the time.
That's
the title of my book, When It Rains, It Pours, actually was the first title that came to mind, and it's the one that I stuck with throughout the entire process of reading or writing this book. A little teeny.
okay, you froze up on us.
Been something that I've been working on and working through for quite a long time. And yeah, so that's where the title came from. It was the first one. It was the one that stuck with me. And even, all of this time, reworking, writing this story, it never changed. It was, during a period in my life when that's exactly how I felt. I felt like, anything that could happen would happen, and it just would not stop. And so, yeah, when the rain comes, it comes and it stays. And yeah, that's how I was feeling at that point in my life. So there's the title.
So tell us about the book itself, because it's nonfiction. It's a story, right?
It is nonfiction, and it.
I mean, it is. Well, is it nonfiction or fiction? I said nonfiction, but I was thinking
it's fiction. Did I say nonfiction too?
Yes, we did the same thing. Okay, so did we just reveal a secret? Is it really about real people?
Well, you know what? Because my family, it's so funny that my family members who've read the book and, people that have been in my life forever and a day that kind of know a lot of my history. And they are like, hey, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. So it's, and as I explained to my family that there are some things that you're going to connect to because, this is the way, I wanted to present the story. I wanted it to be more real than it was fake. I wanted people to be able to connect some way, for it to be a story that, people could actually say, hey, I'm feeling that, I'm seeing that. And therefore, but there's a lot of, things that are in there that I just felt would enhance the story in a lot of ways. So it's a little bit of me and it's a little bit of my life, but then it's a lot of, extending beyond that. So that's.
Well, I'm hoping I don't know any of the things that happened to you, because what happened to the young lady in that book is like, oh my God, will she ever get a break?
It's, and the one thing that I do, that I find a lot of people say is like, they hate the mother in the story, which.
Yes. Oh my God, I can remember that.
Like, I don't like her. Like, one of my coworkers was like, it was a great book and I loved it, but that lady, that mom in that story, like, that lady, I hate that lady. Like, that was just an awful person. And I was like, oh, well, I guess that's a good reaction to have, if you're really connecting to the story. So I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the reviews that I've heard. An aunt, she just got her copy actually last week, and she called me. She's like, I can't wait to sit down and read this. She's, I'm so excited about, reading the story and finding out how this, girl gets on with her life because just, I guess, basically reading the back cover. She's like, this is crazy. I just want to know what happens to her. And I'm like, well, you gotta read to find out. Like, I can't tell you. So yeah, so it's good.
Yeah, it's definitely a page turner. I was all into it. Little good gracious. So now, you want to tell us any more about it? Any backstory that you want to share? Or if you want to think about it, we can go on to the next person and come back. I mean, this is not a one or nothing. I mean, you can come back into the conversation later.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that as far as like the backstory is concerned, I think it's one of those things where I feel it's not just my story. I think it is a story of a lot of young women, especially things that I've heard over the years during that time, situations and things that, you know, young girls my age were going through. So I think, you know, it's just really a story about life and overcoming a lot of the negative impact. So where I feel like the gentleman that was talking, Mr. Howard, that was talking before me, it's like, you know, you want people to read and understand, hey, like I can overcome, you know, these tragic things that kind of happen in life that you really have no control over. And I think that's one of the things in the story that you just, you know, the girl in the story didn't have control over a lot of the stuff that was happening in her life. Give me a minute. And so what ended up happening was, you know, she was having a lot of things happen to her. And therefore she had to try to overcome these things and make a difference in her own life, because there are choices that she could have made that probably would have landed her in a much more negative situation. So I think her attitude helped her a lot, and being able to navigate her life in the way that she did, I think kind of impacted her over time.
So we have a question that is probably of all the authors. So when you talk, you can answer this, but, and I think the answer to yours is already given, but do most writers tend to pull from their own personal life experiences when writing? In most of the cases that I am working with, the answer to that is yes, because one of the things that I like to do is to shed light on real life. Did it really happen?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't typically go with someone who's writing a story that is fiction, but Rosetta changed my mind about that. Yeah. So that works. Now, I do have an author friend who wrote a book. Her father was a Negro League baseball player. And she wrote a book, yeah, and she called her book fiction, okay, because she wanted to include things that happened around her and her family, but she didn't know all the facts. So she turned it into a fiction, a historical fiction, but it really is the story about her family's life. So I think it's a mixture of all of those things. Okay, so if you want to come back in, you certainly, I want you to, but we're going to go on.
Will do.
Okay, thank you. We're going on to Karen. Now, Karen has done something different. And let's see if we can make this happen. I'm going to share my screen, I think. Okay, let's see. Share. Okay, so this is Karen, and we're gonna hear a video. Now, hold on to your seats about this one.
I write because it gives me a form of release. I'm able to express my deepest hurts and pains, sometimes confusion. God spoke in his word, Habakkuk 2:2, when I asked what it is that you need for me to do. Why so much pain? And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon the tables, that he may run that reads it. As I look back over my life, I can recall one of my deepest hurts, one that I thought will forever leave me in fear. Thinking back on that night, it was a night of horror, a night I thought I wasn't going to survive, a night my life was almost taken by someone that I loved dearly. Finding out that I was pregnant, knowing I was about to become a mother, and I was going to have someone that was going to love me forever, not knowing the outcome was going to be a tragedy for her. My firstborn, God gave her to me for a moment, and 2 weeks later she was gone. Now, I'm lost again. I'm hurting. It was not easy to overcome the fear and the pain because eventually it became a part of my life. Living in an abusive marriage for me was many different reasons. I was in love. I thought I was in love. Then along came the kids, and I wanted a happy family. So I chose to stay. But then God spoke through my child, and I knew I had to make a change. I woke up one morning and I looked in the mirror. I didn't like what I saw, and I didn't like what I was feeling. I cried out, help me, Lord. I smile more. I can see the beauty of life through God's eyes. I thank him daily for my change, and I pray daily that he uses me to be a blessing to someone. I'm walking away from adversity, and I'm running into my destiny. And so my journey begins.
Okay, so please promote Karen so that she can talk and tell us about this.
Well, first I like to say, I like to give God all the glory for this day. But this is the day that he has made.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that must be me.
To the
Hold on.
Marjorie Harvey Foundation mentoring session, and I'm just working out a couple things. Conversation with y'all goes as smooth as possible.
You're all set, Miss Karen.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to give honor to God for this day, and also to tell my cousin happy birthday. And if it wasn't for her, she's part of the reason my book was published. So I just want to thank her for all that she has done as well. As you can see from my video, I have dealt with a lot of different types of hurts in my life. And the title of my book, Healing for the Hurting, came about knowing that there's so many people out there that's hurting. And I just wanted to share my journey with them to give them a sense of conference and encouragement to know that you can heal from those deepest wounds. My book is about love and forgiveness. So throughout the book, I talk about the hurt that I came about from others, but I was able to forgive them to continue to walk in love. That's what God have us to do. So my book is about restoring, rebuilding your trust and faith in God. And my journey on healing came about from each time that I actually experienced hurt, pain, I took it to God. And each time I took it to God, I gained more strength. So I just I just honor him for everything. I'm constantly telling him thank you. And I thank God that I don't look like what I've been through. The first part of my video, you heard the gunshots. And in my book, the story was called Hidden Secrets, Forgiveness. And the person that actually shot at me 6 times, but 6 times, was actually my brother. And to this day, I never stopped loving him. I wrote in my book, I was made to love, meaning at that time, when I was writing the story, I was speaking of my mother, because my mother was the only child and she had 5 of us. So she always wanted us to bond and she wasn't going to allow anything to not make that happen. So when that incident took place, because of her authority and my respect for her, for that, I was by my brother's side the next day, because he also got injured that night in the shooting. So I was by his bedside the next day rather, and from that point on, I was still by his side. So I never was really given the opportunity to say, no, I'm not dealing with that. You know, I continue to walk as my mother had me to walk. And I thank God that she led me that way, because that opened up my heart to learn how to forgive and move on. But I wasn't actually healed from any of that. Everything that took place in that video happened 25, 30 years ago. So, but once I wrote my book and released it, I was totally, completely healed.
So it's amazing when you hold all this stuff in and then finally you let it go. It's an amazing feeling. Absolutely.
It really is. It took me on a journey. From that point on, I got into doing 5Ks and half marathons, and I really enjoy it. I just feel free. I have peace.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not going to allow anyone to take that. Once you experience peace, there's nothing else matters.
What I like about your book too is that it is a mixture of things. You have the story, then you have Bible verses, you have photographs. It's just a mental joy to go through, because it breaks it up. And if you wanted to go through and just read all the Bible verses, you could do that, or you could just read the story and do that. It's just very nicely done, in my opinion. And I am biased, but
thank you. And my reason for the Bible verses in the bag is, you know, the meditation with healing. This is my journey. This is what I did. I grabbed the word and I read, and I found scriptures that, you know, dealt with what I was dealing with and what helped me through, you know, my situation. So I shared it with others and hoping that, you know, they'll be delivered from, you know, whatever that may be causing them pain or holding them down from, you know, excelling.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you. The next person we're going to hear from is Pamela McCoy. There you go. Hey, lady.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. And you?
I am doing well, doing well. Hello, good evening to everyone.
Good evening to you. All right, so you actually have an eclectic background, but I came on the scene with you as far as the authorship is concerned when I realized just how much volunteering that you do because of somebody wanting to get some awards and things and get you recognized for what you're doing. And it spoke to something that I ultimately ended up creating was tiny books.
Mm-hmm.
And that means it's the book about you is not your entire life. In fact, nowhere near it.
Just a little snippet.
Just a little snippet. And it is about what you do and to highlight the fact that you are, let me see if I can get the background to show everybody. You are basically a shero.
You say.
Yeah, I say, I do. And got your purple cape and everything. Now,
Yes.
the purple is because of the rest of your life. So why don't you talk about you before the book and then this book experience?
Okay. Well, my background, I am the youngest of 4 children. My father was in the military, so we've traveled around. So I don't really have roots as most people do, where you went to kindergarten with the same people that you graduated high school with. We were moving every 2 or 3 years or what have you. My dad did 27 years in the Air Force. And then I ended up marrying Air Force. So that's kind of all that I know. I got my degree from North Carolina State University with a major in business and a concentration in economics. And it's just so ironic how kind of childhood presented itself in my adulthood. My dad was phenomenal at managing money. And so some of the tools that he gave us fundamentally growing up as it relates to money, the irony is such that my background is banking and finance and credit cards, and my own company, Bonafide Credit Consultants. What we do is provide financial capability education, personal money management, and various other trainings. So it just, some things, the little snippets or sayings that my dad would say growing up. For example, he would say things like credit cards should be used to buy time and not money. Well, when you're young, you don't really know what that means. You just kind of whatever. But he said it often. And so growing up, then I came to learn what that meant. And what he was really saying is that, you know, you need to manage the money, be good stewards of the physical stewards of what you have. And that credit cards are simply a tool, right? For buying things, not because you don't have the money, but rather so that your money can be making money, kind of thing. And so that's the premise of credit cards, should be used to buy time. So you're buying that grace period from the transaction to when it's due. And during that time, your money's working for you in some type of investment or something, but you don't want to pay any kind of interest and all of that for using your own money. So it's not, I'm putting it on a credit card because I don't have the money. It's because there's benefits financially for me for doing so. So, but through all of that, also growing up, giving back was always very important. And so that was just a way of life, and it continued into my adulthood. And as Ersula indicated, I do my fair share of outreach and giving back and all of that. I like to refer to it as heart work. And just as important as your heart is with all the arteries and it's central to your body, my giving back is that central and important to me. So I do quite a bit of it. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, Miss Ersula.
Okay, so the opening of your book basically says, and that's the Shero's story. My most profound memory came during my freshman year in college. After spending a wonderful Christmas break at home with my family in Goldsboro, North Carolina, I embarked on the 1-hour drive back to North Carolina State University in Raleigh. Then I was hit head on by a drunk driver on a Sunday of all days. Now, to say that was profound is understatement.
Is an understatement.
And I've always been a caring and passionate person, concerned about other people. I relentlessly seek ways of giving back. This entire book talks about how you have given back, to the point where, in talking to Ralph Smith, we both looked at you and went, how the heck did she have time to do all of this? So give us a snippet of some of the things that's highlighted in here. And I say do that because I see this as an example of ideas that people can have. Not that you want to tell all those ideas now, but by reading the book, they can see some things where they can join the process of giving and see how it's done.
And it's very rewarding, selfishly. And quite frankly, I didn't even realize kind of all until you and Ralph kind of brought that to my attention. And then we created, you all will see in the book, there's just like this long laundry list. And you just do, you know, and you're kind of going like the Energizer Bunny and not really realizing it. But for me, everything I do professionally and personally, the word I use is impact. I want to impact any and every individual that I cross my path. I want their life to be better somehow enriched by the fact that our paths crossed. And so, you know, some examples of volunteer work that I do, I partner with Dress for Success. My husband and I have put together what we call the Keep Tampa Warm team, where we provide clothing and hot coffee and all of that to the homeless. Because to the least of these, and biblically speaking, and I think some of the other authors were making those references, and that just speaks to how fundamental our faith is and what we do and who we are. But too much is given, much is required. And for doing to the least of these are things that he requires of us. And so it's not robbery, it is not hard work, it is not giving, because everything you give, and I'm a firm believer in the boomerang blessing. And what I mean by that, when you give something, what you get back in return, it may not necessarily be monetary if what you did was monetary, but it always comes back in some form or fashion that you're blessed. And even if it is, you know, the smile on someone's face, the making someone's day, to really what you may not know at the time is giving them a reason to hold on. And as the old people say, go another further, you know, when they were just about to give up. So I serve on a couple different boards, advisory boards. One, the mayor's, that's why I was a little late coming on. We had our meeting with the mayor this evening. PowerNet is another nonprofit that deals with reentry. I do some work with Pay Center for Girls, the Children with a Vision, which is Tanya Lewis, who has a huge footprint in the Tampa Bay community. She does things, the Grandmother's Gala, all things around kids. Awesome person, awesome outreach. So if you're looking for things to do in terms of volunteering, there's plenty to do. And as they say biblically, you know, the work in the vineyard is plenty, but the workers are few. So, you know, I'm a mentor at USF, School of Business. Again, giving back, it's just the goal. And so the list goes on and on in terms of what I do. But I think more importantly is why I do what I do, because there's no greater feeling than knowing that you have poured into someone else's life. And when they accomplish whatever their goal or dream is, that you know that I just had a little piece or part in them doing that. And, you know, particularly our youth, you know, we really need to garner around our youth and pour back into them and encourage them, give them a reason to do the right thing. Because that is a struggle, that's our future. And right now, quite frankly, we're at risk because our future is kind of sketchy right now for a lot of reasons. But yeah, I just love what I do. I'm so grateful for Ersula and Ralph for kind of putting this all together. you know, it's not about recognition. It's just really about giving back. So thank you guys for that, and for the opportunity to be amongst these other authors, even in what they do. I've written a book as well, called Bonafide Bits for Inspiration and Intellect Collide with Your Finances. And again, it's about really kind of making that correlation. And why is it inspiration? Because that's my faith. And I can't talk about finance without talking about my faith. I can't do anything without incorporating and talking about my faith, because that's fundamental and foundational in everything that I do.
All right, thank you.
You are welcome.
So how are you wearing your She Rose cape? Tell them about your purple.
Well, purple happens to be my favorite color, and you'll see it in everything. I like to jokingly say, if it comes in purple, I either have it or I'm trying to get it. Kind of thing. But more recently, I'm doing some work with, in partnership with the City of Tampa and Catholic Charities, helping to impact the lives of those at Hillsborough Hope. That is the homeless population in this pandemic, helping them maneuver through this gauntlet. So again, they're always in need. So if you want to donate to the cause, you can donate monetarily, you can donate physical things that they need or what have you. I can get the information to Ersula if you're interested in doing that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Okay, so I know my screen is a little bit different. So Dana, I need your help here. I know that Jesse is attempting to get in and is ready. And I think Clemmy is on. So any other author that's there, Rose is here, that wants to speak at this point, would you please promote them and allow them to do so? Jesse.
Hey, how are you? Hold on, I'm trying to get the camera open.
Okay.
Let me see. Hey.
There you go. Hey, my friend.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
Okay, so Jesse has another book in the Tiny Book series with me, and his first book with me is a book of call to action quotes. But tell us about you and the stuff all around you, then talk about the quote book, because
Okay.
got a lot of stuff going on.
First, let me welcome all of you guys, Ms. Dana, Karen, Rosetta, all of you guys, Ms. Pam, I see you. Ms. Ursula, thank you so much for inviting me to this. A little bit about me. My name is Jesse McNeil, and I don't even know where to begin, Ms. Ursula.
Just go with it.
Okay, flow with it. Hey, I've been married for 16 years, been with my wife for 20 years, have 3 beautiful kids. My wife and I own 5 different companies, anywhere from a pharmacy to grocery store. We have 5 group homes, getting ready to open another group home. I love what I do. Let me see, what else? What else can I talk about? Oh, I'm a motivational speaker. I speak around the world with different people. I love that as well. I travel quite often, speaking to different nonprofits, churches, different organizations, not only about the book, but about business etiquette, business leadership. I'm a business and life coach as well. I do have many clients that I speak to on a daily basis or every other day in reference to their businesses opening, closing, or trying to get better within their business. I'm a youth pastor, a football coach. I have 2 nonprofits, one being the Walk Group, which focus on young men becoming new era men. And I truly believe that the old ways of the old men are no longer profitable or no longer working with our younger generation now. So I give them new ways and new directions and new steps to take within their own walk. You know, see, I don't tell them how to walk. I just take their mindset and their direction and allow them to take the right steps within their own directions. So just a little bit about me. And I mean, I can talk on and on, but that's just a small synopsis of me.
Okay, so you are traveling with some pretty big powerhouses. Tell us about
Yes.
some of that.
Okay, well, I travel with, Steve Harvey. I was at his camp. Tony Gaskins is one of my good friends who I travel with, and if you know anything about him, he's when I say amazing, he's amazing. He actually gave me an opportunity to come up with him and speak. He speaks in real love, and I speak to kids, you know, and when we combine together, we just do some crazy stuff, you know. I've spoken with Les. I've gone to see so many different people um, and travel around the world with those different people as well. So that's just to name a few. I'm the most humble guy you ever meet. You know, if no one asks me, I won't tell you. I just keep going and I just try to change one life at a time.
Now, you said change one life at a time, and that brings up something I said earlier tonight, but I want to repeat it. When I decided to write my book, I went to see Felicia Winton, and she was the owner of the Black Bookstore. And I sat and talked with her for about an hour, just trying to decide what to do. And she ultimately said to me, it's not how many lives that you affect, but that you affect lives. And every time someone says to me that I had an impact on their life, Felicia lives. Because I think of her, she's in my head, she's in my heart, because that person is that one person. And I've had more than one. And that's a thrill to know that the decision came because of one person. Yes. If I could help one person. But as it turns out, I've helped at least a couple. And that's kind of nice.
Yeah, indirectly, I think all of us, as we walk, we don't have to say exactly who we are. The way we walk speaks for itself. And that's one of the things that I live by. I don't go around saying, hey, you know, I speak with this person, I travel here, I do this, I do that. If you can't know me from my walk, that means you don't know me, you know? So I see a need, I meet a need. I think that's with everything that I do. And with my book, I just try to use some of the quotes that I live by to inspire someone else, you know, so that they can get to the next step.
Right. Nice, nice, nice. So, okay, so what's next?
What's next? Well, actually, what's next right now is I have another book that I'm going to give and put out. It's called The Little Boy Inside of Me. And I told Miss Ersula, when I told her about it, she was like, hey, do it. And that story is going to basically be about my own life, twisted just a tad bit. I never met my dad, but if you know me, you'll know that it doesn't matter if I knew my dad. I know my Father in heaven, and he was right there for me every step of the way. He allowed me to make mistakes. He allowed me to get up. He allowed me to say some things that I didn't really mean. But I am who I am today just by the grace and mercy of him. And the little boy inside of me is gearing towards those men who are sometimes 25, 30, 35, even 40, that are still living back at a pain stage of being 10 or 12 years old. And I ask a lot of guys, hey, can you remember anything that hurt you when you was young? And 100% of the times, every one of those guys can tell me yes. And they still live within that same pain at 10 years old, never growing up, which affects them so much in life, because every single thing that they're doing goes back to that same pain at 10 years old. See, when you're 40, you can't have the mentality of a 10-year-old. You know, one of my friends, he liked to call those grown boys. And they are grown boys, you know, 40 years old, still thinking like a 10-year-old in that particular situation. And that book is going to really encourage those guys who are falling within that realm to grow up, you know, grow up from that 10-year-old, that 12-year-old, or even from the last marriage yesterday. You know, we have to always grow from yesterday to today, you know, so. Yeah, that's going to be that's a little bit about the book, and I can't wait to put it out. It's going to be a little bigger and a little longer than my first one. And the first one was just an introductory of who I am and some of the things I live by. That was it. You know, I just wanted to get the first one out, and then I have a whole series out there. It's a Once You Know You Can't Unknow series, which Miss Ersula is going to complete all 5 of those books. Keep out, guys. It's going to be The Little Boy Inside of Me, The Little Girl Inside of You. Can you imagine? Most of the women here, you guys still have some things that you can remember that your mom or your grandma has done to you that you're still living in, you know, and you're still not growing up, even though you're successful in what you're doing. And yes, you're having a facade of everything around you, but yet when you go into your room at nighttime, it still pains you. You know, we shouldn't allow something that happened to us 30 years ago pain us right now when we're 40, 41 years old, you know. Um, I have some other ones coming out. It's a whole Once You Know You Can't Unknow series, and I'm very excited for that. And that's just two of the titles in that series.
It's so funny hearing, or after you said those words to me, once you know, you can't unknow. Now, when things happen, it's like, oh,
Yes.
make sure you want to know this because you can't unknow it. And there's some things that have happened that I cannot unknow.
Yes.
And it's a profound statement. I can't wait till all of those come out. Okay, so you are allowed to come back if you want to. And if there's some other people, I mean, come back into the conversation. I'm going to go on and talk about a couple of other things. So Rose is not, thank you, Jesse.
Oh, no problem.
Rose is not wanting to come and talk, but I want to talk about what her book is. It's about to be released. Okay, I'll point to it. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, so Rose's book is okay, right there. She is talking about what happens to her after a stroke. Now, my uncle, when I was I don't know, in my 20s or 30s, my uncle had a stroke and he told me what it was like. And that was interesting to me. Basically what he told me was that he had the stroke in the field and no one was around, no one. But he was totally alert. He understood everything that was happening around him. And just imagining what that was like was eye-opening for me. And so when someone tells you about an experience that you hope you never have, it gives you a level of compassion. It gives you a level of understanding that I think we all need to have. It's a window into something that is unknown until you're in it. And when you're in it, you're living it. And so she shares all of that in her book. She actually has two books, and the first book is going to be re-released, and it's the background of her life. She's a wonderful artist in multiple ways. She traveled around the world singing and playing music. She made statues out of paper mache, and she also portrays Harriet Tubman, and she's wonderful. So the first story, she talks about her life, and you would be amazed at what she did and who she was. You're there, Rose?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about it. What would you like to share today?
Well, I'm just so excited to hear all of these authors and theirs that I can't wait to read their books.
Yeah, go ahead.
This stuff is new to me. This is really amazing how you're doing this.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Almost as amazing as you are.
Oh, here you go. Rose started this, huh?
You are.
Well, okay, so about a month ago, Rose started saying these things to me that just embarrassed the heck out of me. Rose, I'm me, I'm okay. I'm just as amazed at you and the talent that you have and the fact that you overcome something so difficult and
Oh,
able
praise
to talk
to
about
God.
it. Yeah, yeah. So you all are going to want to read her book too. It's interesting. It's almost an affirmation of how to keep going. That's how I saw, or how I see her upcoming book. Okay, so anything else? Um, anything else you would like to say at this point? And then there's somebody in the chat room that wants to talk as well.
All right.
Anything else?
Well, I'm just excited about the book and being able to share my experience with others.
And thank you for doing that.
Thank you for doing it.
Now, I want to say something to Mr. What's in my head is Chico, okay?
Yeah. Yes.
Rose has an incredible partner that stands by her like nobody's business. And she even talks about that in the book and how that unfolds and the value of that friendship, now marriage.
Yes.
I'm just thrilled at all of this. So thank you both for being a part of this.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so Dana, what's up?
Mr. Charles Wright would like to have a few words.
Okay.
Hi,
Ah.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Okay, I can't hear him now.
Okay, I think I'm back.
Okay.
All right, can you see me?
I can see your name.
Oh, okay. I haven't. But anyway.
And I like your name.
I'm glad. Yes, I'm glad to be a part of it. Glad to hear the stories of all of the authors. I have already started purchasing books through Amazon.
Ooh.
And sitting here thinking about how can I get my message out, my story? How can I make an impact? Because as you know, Ersula, I've got a lot of history. So,
yeah.
But it's more to it than that. And I do appreciate everything that I've heard from everyone here, and definitely am not minimizing by any means what you all have done, what you've accomplished, the work that you put into your product, and just the emotion that you have when you're talking about it, what you feel. And I admire that. I admire it very much. And I see there's a lot to learn from everybody's writing. And I look forward to reading it. I've already left a couple of times and told my wife, it's very interesting. There's some nice books, and I already bought you one, and she said, oh, okay, because she's the avid reader. I read when I can. But my wife, Dorothy, 35 years strong, is the one that her great aunt was or her aunt was a school teacher. And is still, well, she's a retired school teacher now, and she's always taught them read, read, read. And every day since we've been married, she is reading something. So yeah, and then my father, as Ursula knows, was a writer. And one of my sisters has written, I believe, 2 books. Another sister has written a book. So we have a lot of talent in these genes. So, but yes, it was very interesting, and I do want to wish my sister Ersula a happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. I told y'all I like the name. That's my brother, y'all. Thank you, Charles.
You're more than welcome.
Love you dearly.
Love you too, sis.
And you know I want to publish a book, so that's a done deal.
Okay, all right. Let me get the putting something down.
All right, I can help you. There are ways to get that done, and that's not so difficult. I mean, we can work on a couple of different processes that way.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you, everybody else, for everything that you've shown tonight.
Thank you for that. Okay, Dana, you're in control of this right now. Who's up? What's up?
Well, happy
hey.
birthday.
Thank
You're the best pal I know.
Yeah, and you made that
Happy
elevator
birthday.
speech work. Thank you. Oh. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is a great birthday, y'all. Thank you for being a part.
And I've been your
Happy
counter
birthday.
too.
Huh?
I've been your counter too.
Oh, no, you didn't. I don't even want to know how many odds I had.
That's okay. I'll keep it to myself.
But I still can't beat Ralph.
Happy birthday.
Oh,
No.
thank you, Gretchen.
You're welcome.
And Gretchen is a reminder of Felicia. I mean, she keeps Felicia's memory alive. Thank you so very much for that. That woman's, every time we speak her name, she walks back into the room. So thank you for that.
Now, see what happened when you want me to unmute myself? The phone rings.
You're welcome.
Well, that's what insurance ladies do, right? You have to answer those calls.
Yeah, this is my sister, though. Hold on a sec.
Happy birthday, Ersula.
Oh, thank you, Sandra. Oh, my cousin. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, I wanted to see if I could maybe use you. I was told by the VA they wanted to publish my poetry, and I wouldn't. I wouldn't do it because I don't like the VA. Well, that's not nice.
we won't tell them you said that.
But it's kind of personal. It's about my history. I started when I was in the military, and I ended up with a lot of problems after I got out. And I started writing when I got in, and it was an outlet for me to release all the stress and all the anger that I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been writing ever since. I do the poetry. We have a VA poetry contest, Arts Council. I keep winning, but some of my things are very personal for me, so I don't share everything. And they're too personal. I feel exposed. It's too exposed. But they are still trying to get me to publish.
Well, you're in control of that. You can do
I know.
what you like, and I'm here to help you if you
I'll do it for you. Don't tell them that.
But you know what this reminds me of, it could be in phases. It's like you can publish what you want to publish right now. Hey, Rose. You can publish what you want right now, and then maybe 70 years after you decide to go to heaven or something, then you publish the rest.
All right, sounds good. That's awesome. Thank you so much, and happiest birthday to you.
Oh, thank you. You all are making it so. Thank you.
All right, now.
Happy birthday!
Oh, is that mahogany?
Yes.
Who's this?
This is mahogany.
That's what I thought. Hey, baby. A little superstar, a future writer herself, or who knows what this child is going to be, because she's so smart and so wonderful. I love you, Mahogany.
Happy birthday, Ersula.
Oh, Deborah, thank you.
Hey, there she is.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you for an opportunity to be a part of your birthday. I wish you health and happiness always, forever and a day. And in getting to know you, I know that this is what you love doing, and it's it's a blessing to enjoy what you love doing on your special day. And I'm just elated to be a part of it. I got on a birthday hat. I don't think I can be seen. It's probably a good thing.
Laura, enable
Hold
your
on now.
video.
Make that happen. We want to see it.
Dana's picture right now. But I truly,
Video so we can see your hat.
I'm sorry?
Enable your video so we can see your hat.
Okay. Let's see here.
I'll take a screenshot for the record.
Okay. Okay, wait a minute. I see where it says start video. Let me go back. Okay, it says you can't start it because the host has disabled it. Can you see me now?
Okay, she's about to. Oh, hey, Charles.
Hey, sis.
Hey.
You know us IT people, we're the last ones to figure it out.
Oh, yeah, he's a computer whiz. Oh, you know what? If Ralph is still on.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear us?
Yeah, you two are kindred spirits. You and Charles are.
Hey, Charles.
Hi, how you doing, Ralph?
In fact, you probably could be a resource to each other.
All right, we'll have to connect. I'll have to get.
Yes, yes, we will.
But happy birthday, Ursula.
Oh, thank you, Ralph.
Somebody's wearing a birthday hat.
Number it is?
Huh?
That's me.
Oh, there she is.
Funny.
Okay, we celebrate because she got it. That's the spirit. Hey.
But it's a blessing to share it with you and listen to all of the authors and their stories and their testimonies.
I did tell you happy birthday.
Okay, so all right, so Deborah is speaking. Everybody else need to be quiet right now for a second.
I was just saying that it's a blessing again to be a part of your birthday, to share it with you in this way. I know that this is truly you and what you love doing as far as sharing and talking about your book and how you got to that point and to write your stories and your family history and that sort of thing. And as I used to tell you in Toastmasters, that just opened up a whole new way of just being appreciative of my family's history. Listening to you recount yours, and knowing that a lot of our history is lost.
Yeah.
It's lost. So I appreciate you in recording and helping to keep it alive, to keep all of our families' histories alive for generations to come. And I applaud the authors as well for telling their stories through the written word. It's so impactful, so also spiritual, and then just helping others to realize that there too is hope.
Yeah.
Regardless of where you've been, what you've been through, how you started. It's not where you started, it's where you end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been just been really a great afternoon for me to spend it with you on your birthday.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, and congratulations to all of the authors.
Thank you. Okay, so if anybody else want to say anything, this is the time. Otherwise, I'm gonna wrap it up and say thank you so much. Oh, okay. So Deborah just mentioned family.
Where'd you go?
There. Okay. So Deborah just mentioned family history and what have you, and I had not talked about African Americans of Tampa, and just one story I want to tell about that, and then I'll let us all have the rest of the evening to do whatever else you want to do because the sun is still out. Okay, so someone told me that they really liked African Americans of Tampa, and I tried to figure out why, and then I thought about Baby Jane. Baby Jane is a lady that was my grandmother's best friend. But all I could remember is that she had this silhouette of a person. I don't remember what she looked like or nothing. In fact, Karen, she lived, you know where the road where it goes up to your house on Nixon Road where it turns there? Okay, so on the opposite side when you get ready to turn left, it would have been on your right. I think there's a trailer there now. That's where Baby Jane used to live. And so I don't remember what she looks like. And if somebody were to put her picture in front of me, it would just mean the world to me. And that's what African Americans of Tampa does. It puts those old pictures of people's grandparents, uncles and aunts and people that they heard about but never knew what they looked like. That's what this book does. It revitalized all those old photographs for people to know who these buildings are named after and what they did and what they look like and what have you. So I conclude with this. You're telling the stories, but go find the photographs too. Okay, because there are photographs in your family's bottom drawer or box or something that is somebody's great grandparent or somebody's uncle. Sandra and her sister just made my day. They had a picture of Uncle Sammy, my grandmama's brother, and that was a handsome man. Thank you, Jesus. He was so good looking, and when she put that in front of us, oh my Lord, it was such a wonderful moment. You just don't know, because the only picture I had prior to that was you know how the picture where it's so dark you can hardly make out the features because it was in the background and it's grainy. That was the only picture of my grandmother's favorite brother until they popped up with the picture. So that's how
God bless.
it is. So thank you for doing
You're
that.
welcome. You're welcome.
So now you know just how happy I am about that.
I have more.
Oh, now she okay. All right, you told me. Okay, so to all of the authors, thank you so very much. I love today because
Amen.
I'm not one who talks about my birthday that much. I usually don't celebrate it that much. Last year, this time, I had a milestone birthday, and I spent it trying to get somebody book published on their birthday because it was more important to me to help that person realize their dream than for me to party. And then this year you had COVID-19. I said, well, daggone. And then I thought about this. And then Dana volunteered to help me with the Zoom. And it was like, oh my goodness, this is nice. And in a group that I'm in, Think and Grow Rich, the person actually said that, Ersula, if you make money, that means there's more money for you to help other people. Yeah. So by saying that and thinking that way, and it brought me great joy to be able to share this day with the authors so that they can benefit. So that makes me happy. It really does. So thank you all very much. All right, so with that, it's a wrap.
All right.
I had to turn on a light.
Good job.
Oh, hey. Hey, Sandra.
I had to turn on a light.
Oh, well, see, now you know what kind of picture I had of Uncle Sammy, one like one you had. Okay, yes. That's what I was talking about. Couldn't see a thing.
Good night, and I love you.
Love you too. Good night. All right, you all. Thank you
Happy
so very
birthday
much.
once again. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Love you.
God bless.
Love you too.
All right.
Bye.
Happy birthday, Mommy.
Oh, thank you. There's my baby. Secret
Thank
agent.
you. Oh, man.
All right. Y'all take care.
All right. See you.
All right.
Who is that?
Bye, cuz.
Bye.
Yes, to say.
Okay, let's see. How do you do this?
Oh, Rose. That's
Yeah.
Rose. That's Ersula Rose.
Oh, really?
Yeah. All right. Okay. That's it.
Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Dana.
How do you get out of here?
Okay, stop recording.
How do you do this? Oh, here it is.